All righty, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a action-packed meeting this morning. So I want to get everybody in and out. We may have members that have to go to other meetings. But this is the Appropriations Subcommittee of General Government, and thank all of y'all for being here. And we'll go ahead and get started. Director Dunn, do you want to come on down? We'll let you go first and be the guinea pig for everybody this morning. They're probably still awake, or still asleep, so maybe you'll get them woke up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here for the Environmental Protection Division's budget. We administer 3 programs in the DNR budget, which is Section 34 on the House tracking sheet. We have 34.3, which is Environmental Protection, 34.5, which is the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund, and 34.8, which is the Solid Waste Trust Fund. We're working with a base budget of about $124 million in total funds, of which about $40 million, or 32%, is appropriated state funds. So I'll start off on program 34.3, which I think on my copy was page 15 of 25, and there are 5 items under 34.3. 34.3.1, 34.3.2, 34.3.3 are all statewide changes related to the governor's recruitment and retention initiative. At our last amended fiscal year 22 hearing, I talked a lot about our retention and recruitment challenges due largely to pay. And of course, we are very appreciative of the governor's budget and what this committee was able to supplement that with. 34.3.1 just annualizes that $5,000 pay increase at a slightly higher fringe rate. That's $1.581 million. I will note the total cost to the agency of that $5,000 raise is roughly $5.4 million. So that's just about 29% of the funds that are needed. 34.3.2 provides for state funds for an early payout of accrued leave. That's almost $100,000, $99,558. And 34.3.3 are changes to the ERS employer contribution rate, which come out to $694,530. 34.3.4 is also a statewide change. It's just an adjustment to agency premiums to the statewide risk pool administered by DOAS, and that's a slight reduction for us. And the unique item in this program is 34.3.5, which is related to the water storage contract with the Army Corps of Engineers at Lake Allatoona. We've talked a lot about this kind of process the state is going through in obtaining water storage rights in some of the federal reservoirs. We talked a lot about Lanier. This is for Allatoona, which is a little more behind in the process. The amended fiscal year 22 budget and the DCA 1 Georgia budget, funds were provided for the statewide portion of those storage costs, as well as the first year operation and maintenance costs. What this item does, the $4,800, is annualizes that operation and maintenance costs, which is due every year. The storage costs are one-time costs. The O&M costs are something that's due every year. So this just annualizes that in the EPD budget. Moving down to the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund program, which is 34.5.1. That item just aligns the budget with the fees collected from the 75-cent per ton tipping fee at landfills. HB 511 from last session dedicated these fees to the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund, and last year $7.6 million in tipping fees were collected, and the budget modification just simply aligns budget with those collections. We did talk a lot about in the Natural Resources and Environment Committee about other fees that were not dedicated. So this is just the 75-cent per ton tipping fee and aligning that fee, or aligning the budget with the amount collected last year per HB 511. In the Solid Waste Trust Fund program, 34.8.1 also aligns budget with fees collected with the $1 replacement tire fee. Like tipping fees, the replacement tire fee was dedicated to the Solid Waste Trust Fund by HB 511 last session. Last year's collections were $7.6 million. So the budget adds about $4.8 million to the existing $2.8 million base. I will say, Mr. Chairman, if appropriated, those additional funds will be used to finance the higher cost running the regulatory program. They'll be used for abandoned landfill care, There's some legislative adds, such as using the fund to finance the Keep Georgia Beautiful Foundation. We'll use the additional funds for that, and we'll also be able to begin some solid waste reduction activities that are authorized by the Act but have not been funded in recent years due to appropriations. Mr. Chair, those are the changes for EPD in the FY23 budget, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, we've got a few here, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Good morning to you,
Good
sir.
morning.
So there's a bill in the General Assembly now working its way through that with the purpose of dedicating 10%, I think it is, of the Solid Waste Trust Fund. And in my experience in the past, what we've tried to do is give you the leeway you need in which to make the decision. So my question is, what would happen to that ability if we started dedicating segments of these trust funds?
Well, it would certainly take away discretion. I would note that our spend plans are approved by our board, and we submit every year our spending reports to the General Assembly so you can review and discuss with us priorities you may have. But certainly a bill requiring a certain amount of fees to be used for a specific purpose takes away some discretion from the agency. I will say that particularly with our recruitment challenges, there's been a desire from me particularly to allow us to spend additional funds on staff, but we've maxed out the amount we can spend on staff right now, and if we were to take away some funds, that would hinder our flexibility in the future to add, for example, the solid waste permitting staff to be funded through the Solid Waste Trust Fund. So it just takes away that discretion and flexibility.
Thank you.
Whip Patchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for being up front on the 30%, 70% split, I guess, between state
Yes, sir.
people and federal, which
Yeah,
you use
yeah.
federal money for.
Right.
Are you able to give, with the federal money, are you able to give those employees the cost of living
Yeah,
increase?
so our funding split, because of the way our programs work, we're not administering federal programs. We are able to administer federal programs at the state level because our law is just as stringent or more stringent than the federal law. So when we administer federal laws, we're really administering state laws as well. So we don't have folks working on federal programs and folks working on state. It's just a mix between the two. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so the fact that 30% of the pay rate funds are state funds and the rest are federal funds, our number one priority is to redirect any federal funds that we have and other funds that we have to the pay raise, because that's the most critical issue facing the agency. So we're going to have to redirect things that were spent on other purposes for this pay raise, because again, we think that's the number one priority.
But you are going to be able to do it.
We're trying to. It's a lot of money to take from one purpose and put to this purpose.
All right, Director, on the Lake Allatoona
Yes,
stuff,
sir.
I know you mentioned there were some that were one-time funds and some were annual costs. Is
Right.
that going to kind of stay where it's at, or are they going to fluctuate over time, or we don't know?
Yes. So the one-time costs are related to the cost of storage in the lake, and we're working off an estimate. We're negotiating the contract right now. We're working off an estimate. That one-time cost may fluctuate a little. We had to true up Lanier in the amended budget to true it up, so it may change just a little. The operation and maintenance costs are based upon actual expenditures by the Corps. So those will fluctuate from year to year, but we're hoping that at least that base will be able to manage those fluctuations. I will also add, Mr. Chairman, there's three components. There's storage costs, there's operation costs, and there's what's called RR&R costs, which is for major repairs to the dam. Those RR&R costs are kind of one-offs, and will be, because we have storage in the dam, for major repairs and renovations for the dam, we'll have a share of those costs, and we'll just have to address those when those happen. But again, that's expected to be once every, few years. It's not something that happens every year.
Okay, good deal. Any other questions from the committee? Director, I don't see any. I think you're done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for what you do. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for your support.
Yes, sir. Next up, we're going to change up just a little bit. It won't take long, I think, is Andrew Turnage here. You want to come on down, Andrew? And we'll let you go, and then we'll get back on schedule if that's all right. I know you've got so much to talk about. And for members, we're on page 23, section 43.7, access to medical cannabis.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I am Andrew Turnage, the Executive Director for the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission, a relatively new and relatively small state agency. And we are looking at 5 items listed, 43.7 items 0.1 through 0.5. The items that are listed here for you are concurrent with the adjustments for full-time and benefits eligible state employees for FY23. You can see the lines items at 0.1 include the funding for the increase. Just as a side note, we have 6 full-time employee positions at the commission beginning this fiscal year. The next item, 0.2, is the items for withdrawing annual leave hours. 0.3, as you can see here, are contributions to ERS or GSEPs, and 0.4 is to reflect a change in the contribution to TRS for employees in that system. The final item, 0.5, is to increase or to cover the increase in premiums by insurance administered by DOAS. And the figure change up that you see in the budget from the amount at HB 81 was 847, and the projected here is 908 and some change for FY23. And Mr. Chairman, that's our items for the commission, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you or the committee may have to the best of my ability.
All right. Well, thank you. Any questions from the committee? I have one, Andrew. I know there's a bill out there to expand licenses to, I think, 22. And I know that people paid in to the state to obtain an opportunity to get a license. If this bill were to pass, what will be the impact on your agency as far as costs go? Will you need more funds to manage 22? Obviously, we're going from 6 to 22, so I'm going to assume that you're going to need more staff and more oversight and investigators and a lot more people. Could you maybe, hypothetically, if this were to pass, what it would do to your agency and what your needs would be going forward as far as budget requirements go?
I appreciate the question, Mr. Chairman, and appreciate the foresight of this committee and the possible impact of passage of House Bill 1400 or amendments to the bill. Currently, just a quick look backwards at kind of where we are versus where we would go. The funding that we've received in the previous fiscal years has been $225,000 for 3 fiscal years until amended FY22. And the Commission is very grateful for the work that the General Assembly has done to help us to acquire the necessary funding to get this agency stood up and to begin operations. The original Office of Planning and Budget fiscal note that was prepared for the agency outlined a $1.2 million budget, and that was in line with the issuance of the 6 production licenses. That's the 2 Class 1 and the 4 Class 2 that we currently have oversight for, as well as the dispensing licenses that go along with those. So if you look at the funding that is tied to the revenue collections from the agency on both the application as well as the licensing fees, the math adds up. And that's pretty much a standard approach that I've seen over many years in state government, is to tie those licensing fees to the agency's budget so that we can collect and cover those costs. To say it differently, OPB memo was 1.2, and our projection is to collect approximately 1.1 and some change in the fiscal year. We've been appropriated, as you know, 847, thanks to an additional 622,000 that we received for the current fiscal year, FY22 amended. So to hurry up and answer your question, Mr. Chairman, if we were to expand our licensing from the 6 production facility licenses to 22, the changes made by SB 195 determines who is eligible to obtain dispensing licenses as well. And it's a symbiotic relationship. So each of the production licensees is entitled to apply for currently 5 dispensing licenses, and that number will likely go to 6 because there's a population trigger dependent upon the number of patients on the patient registry that they can obtain. So using the number of 6, we would potentially go from the 6 production licenses to 22. We would potentially go from 36 dispensing licenses to 132 dispensing licenses. So we would have oversight for approximately 154 license facility locations in the state. Again, that's inclusive of the production facilities and the subsequent dispensing licenses. The answer to the question is I only have napkin math for you. I can tell you, though, on the front end that our revenue projection for that collection would be approximately $4.5 million if the bill were to pass as currently written. I estimate, maybe the best word, Mr. Chairman, is as a University of Georgia graduate, maybe I should say guesstimate. Math is not what I studied when I went to UGA, but I think my napkin math is looking beyond $5 million and more in the direction of $8 million to appropriately administer that number of licenses. And I'd like to just speak to the items that would cover. We would need additional office space, additional vehicles, additional equipment, and of course, personal services would be the primary item that would need to increase dramatically to have personnel to cover proper regulatory oversight.
Okay. All righty. Well, that's good information to know. Thank you. Any further questions from committee on that? That's a lot of napkin math, Andrew.
Give it my best shot, Mr. Chairman.
I hear you. Good deal. All righty. I don't see any further questions. We'll watch that closely and see how things progress there and keep that on our radar. And I guess appreciate all the work you're doing over there to try to get all the issues solved and get folks the stuff they need to get better. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate the questions.
All right. Next up, we've got Department of Driver Services, Commissioner Moore. Come on down. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you, Mr. Chairman, and I hope to be even more brief than what Andrew was.
You don't have any napkin math, do you?
I don't have that. Morehouse, we don't do napkin math at Morehouse.
He did say he went to Georgia, but I might not should say that.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. First of all, before I start, I'd just like to say thank you for your recommendations and amended. The department certainly appreciates those requests and your foresight in helping the department move forward in the areas that we requested. As far as the amended, the fiscal year 23 budget, I'll be really brief. I think each of the commissioners and directors who have come before me spoke about the statewide ads. We certainly appreciate the governor as well as the support of the House and Senate in these statewide ads and amended, and certainly would ask your favorable approval in the 23 budget. From our standpoint, we are already seeing retention just from the announcement of these potential changes in ads to our department, and it's sorely needed. We currently have about 166 vacancies in our field operations division, which is the area which serves the 67 centers around our state. So if we see those numbers continue to go down, hopefully we won't see that number of calls that have traditionally come when constituents can't get their driver services met. So we're really hopeful that that continues to go forward. I won't speak directly to those. I'll just go down. We're on page 7, section 21 of the tracking sheet. 21.2.6 is the specific request that is listed for the department. Beyond the statewide ads, it is to reduce funds for one-time funding for CDL testing pad and carousel in Southeast Georgia. and that number of reduction is $1.2 million. We do estimate this is a center to be built, a CDL site that is very necessary considering the number of drivers we are needing in our state. We do estimate that the building will actually cost a little over $2.1 million for this center to be built. And when we made the original request for construction, we did not consider staffing as it would be related to operating those, not just the building there in Hazelhurst once we get it built, but also the new CDL site that we're building in Douglasville. So that is the facts as we know it at this point, and that's if construction costs hold and they don't go up. Line item 21.2.7 is to provide funds for voice bot technology in our call center. We have one of the busier call centers in the state, and we have seen a tremendous impact in the voice bot that we have implemented. Thus far, it's answered since November 22nd up to February 21st, 200,000 calls. Of those, 183,000 have been answered without agent assistance, which is what we were hoping for when we implemented the technology. We were simply asking for $125,000 for ongoing maintenance costs as it relates to this voice bot. And it was favorably approved and amended, and we certainly appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the ads for our department. Certainly stand ready to answer any questions that you all might have.
All right, well, thank you, Commissioner. On that voice bot, do you foresee your agency raising that to a higher level? I know you've talked about some of the success you've had with that program. Do you see it any greater needs there going forward? Or?
We potentially may have some greater needs. What we wanted to do was start out in slow capacity. We implemented what we're calling phase one of that project. And I hope with, in our call center, we have 19 vacancies at the moment. We only have a 54-person call center. So the voice bot helps. But and the great thing about it, and I think I've said this to the committee before, is you actually, it sounds like you're talking to a person, which is helpful. Folks don't necessarily just click out of it. They listen, and it's answering a lot of their calls. But potentially, as we continue to implement it, we may need additional assistance, and we will certainly alert the committee if that occurs.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Commissioner, I don't see any. I just want to say, and I've told you this before, but I guess first of all, it's great to hear that retention is improving, and that's good news, and I'm excited for you on that. And again, I just appreciate you keeping all your locations open through all this COVID, and you've kept them open for the people of Georgia to go to them and get the things they needed to get, and we're having issues with that in some other areas, so I appreciate you doing that, and I know it's been tough, but thank you for that.
Welcome, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next up we've got Secretary of State. Gabe, you're presenting this morning on behalf of the Secretary, I guess, and good. Yeah, what'd you do wrong?
Well, the reality was, and your staff can let you know this, they were emailing me last week about this, and I had emergency dental surgery where they yanked 2 teeth out, so I was kind of out of it for a couple of days. In the meantime, they scheduled the secretary, so y'all get me. Yeah. So we're going to be on pages 23 through 24, or 22 through 24, pardon me, in section 43. And just real quickly, we saw Andrew Turnage up here earlier in section 43.7 because we have 2 agencies that are administratively attached to us that are officially part of our budget, and we help them on the budgeting and administration side, but we don't really run. They're independent, and those are the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission and the Real Estate Commission. So if you look at the end of section 43 and look at the actual Secretary of State budgets, it's really $23,510,984 in state dollars, with $28,746,336 in total funds for our budget. And like every other agency, we want to thank the governor and the House and Senate for looking favorably on the increases for retention and recruitment of staff, because that's been a challenge for all agencies, obviously. And that is the biggest change through all the different sections of our budget. If you look at 43.1, which is corporations, that is 100% funded through retained revenue. So we do need to ask, when working with your budget staff on this, to reflect us giving that raise to all 48 positions in corporations with the 61.73% burden that we run. That would be, if you could add it for our budgeting purposes, it would still be retained. It'd be the money we already bring in, $388,152, so we can have those raises reflected inside those 48 positions. That's one thing we'd like to ask you all to have done in the budget. The other thing that we have is, you go through elections, that is essentially all the things that are across the board. This is the DOAS changes, the teacher retirement system. We have one employee is in that, so that's a $156 change. The annual leave balance accrued payouts, and of course the $5,000 pay raises and the TeamWorks billing. So the net change is $288,000 based on that. We go to investigations at 43.3, and you go down to 43.3.6. What we've done there is, we're in an effort to rationalize securities. There are several employees that were both in investigations and professional licensing board who are really aligned underneath the securities division now, because their investigations and their work is financial in nature, and it's very specific and specialized. So we presented that to OPB and the governor, and they agreed with us that it makes more sense to move those positions out of investigations and PLB directly under the securities division for better accountability and better budget tracking. So that's the reason for that move. Under the Office of Administration, again, it's the across-the-board increases with those other changes in the statewide area. Professional Licensing Board, as I just noted before, if you go to 43.5.6, you see the transfer of 2 employees, and that's directly having to do with cemeteries. And the reason cemeteries is financial is because oftentimes you have lots of prepayment, and we have to have people who can investigate and make sure that the money is being cared for properly, and that's the reason we've aligned that under the Securities Division. And you can see securities, they have the commensurate increase from those those overall transfers in 43.6.6 for a net change of $404,000. In the overall budget, that change is the $272,000 of that transfer is not a change in our overall budget. It's just going from one division inside our organization to another division inside our organization. So those are the main changes we're looking at. And again, thank you all for y'all's work and y'all's efforts to keep the budget balanced and protecting Georgia taxpayers, and I stand to answer any questions y'all might have.
All right. Well, thank you for that presentation. Couple quick ones is, far as I know the GBI's helped with some investigations, the elections stuff, and you have some of your own investigators. Do you foresee any more needs there? Or are you adequate in that area? Or
one of the things that we had presented previously to OPB and to House and Senate budget staff was, in election years from now on, which would be the 2022s and 2024s, we anticipate having a high number of elections investigations. So we had originally asked for 4 part-time post-certified officers to help with that surge capacity in those elections. The governor's office did not see fit to do that, so we're currently going to get by what we have, but we will never miss an opportunity to say we always need more investigators, because we don't just investigate elections, which is, of course, the highest profile thing we do now. We have licensees we have to investigate, locations we have to investigate, we have inspections that we have to do across the PLB, corporations, and securities divisions. And during the surge capacity of the previous couple of years, really since 2018, but it really surged in 2020, a lot of our 20 investigators, there's 2 that are 100% dedicated to elections. But we had all 20 of them dedicated during that period of time, even with the GBI supplementing some of our investigations at the time. And we appreciate the governor's budget to put 2 more GBI investigators specifically for investigations to come alongside us and help and add to that capacity. But we would always prefer to have more investigators, but we can get by with what we have right now. But the needs will continue to increase as we've had record numbers of people applying for licenses. We currently administer 541,380 something licenses in the state. We are at records of applications and record licensures that's doing nothing but increasing for 2 reasons. 1, population increase, and 2, the change of the way work is doing now, especially post-COVID. COVID has really surged those numbers in both corporations and licensing. So I would always say we'd need and want more investigators, because even on the inspection side right now, you want to be able to look at locations once every 4 years. Right now, I think we could do it once every 8 years if we're doing specific complaint investigations and inspections.
Okay, and they're able to do multiple, and they're not just, okay.
Correct, sir.
All righty. Any further questions from the committee? All right, Gabe, I don't see any more.
Well, thank y'all
you
very
for-
much. Appreciate your time. And if you got any follow-up questions, just let us know.
Okay, thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Director Cross, Georgia Commission on Equal Opportunity. Welcome. We don't get to see you very often, so thank you for being here today.
Happy to be here.
Members, we're on page 8, section 27.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all today. Like Mr. Chairman said, I actually don't get to see you all very often, so I'm very happy to be here. I am Alana Cross, the Executive Director of the Georgia Commission on Equal Opportunity, Office of the Governor. And during today's budget presentation, I will reference the General Government Committee tracking sheet, and the governor's recommendations begin on page 8. I will also reference section 27, specifically line item 27.4, and we have 5 items appropriated in the budget. However, only 1 item in the budget is outside of the 4 statewide changes. Beginning with fiscal year 2023, budget recommendations for GCEO, which are included on page 8 of the bill. Overall, for GCEO, the governor has recommended a fiscal year 2023 budget of $1,285,401 in state funds. This amounts to an increase in expenditures of $414,554. In summation, the total budget allocation, including both state and federal funds, for fiscal year 2023 will be $1,316,401. Please direct your attention to line item 27.4 on page 8 of the bill as well. For line items 27.4.1, 27.4.2, 27.4.3, and 27.4.4, the governor is recommending 4 statewide changes to address agency recruitment and retention needs. Like most agencies, GCO is experiencing challenges with recruiting and retaining a capable and quality workforce. And this compensation package will help us with our efforts to be more competitive amongst our federal partners, and also not just attract quality candidates, but also to retain our best asset, which is our staff. For line item 27.4.5, the budget recommendation is to increase funds to hire 2 investigators and 1 intake officer for the Fair Housing Division. $185,995 is the salary and fringe benefit calculation for those new positions. GCO lost its status as a HUD certified agency in 2012, and the Georgia Fair Housing Law was amended via HB 969, and that was to make the Georgia Fair Housing Law substantially equivalent to the Federal Fair Housing Act. And this is one of the requirements that HUD had in order for us to retain our certification as an interim certified agency. The new requirement in order to reach the full certification is a staffing requirement that requires us to have additional staff. And based on Georgia's population size, they're recommending that we have anywhere from 6 to 8 staff members added to the Fair Housing Division. So based on our population size, we are required to have 6 to 8 compliance officers, and we currently have 4 compliance officers and 2 intake officers. The governor's budget recommends an additional 2 compliance officers and 1 intake officer to meet the program staffing needs. And I would just like to take a moment to thank you all for your support for the state as for GCO as well. And I also would like to take a moment to thank the governor, the OPB staff, as well as the governor's staff for their support and resources that they provide to the agency regularly. This concludes my presentation of the fiscal year 2023 budget, and I welcome any questions you may have at this time.
All right, well, thank you, Director. Maybe just for the committee's reference, these investigators, what do they do on a regular basis? What are they investigating for, and what do they do?
So the Georgia Commission on Equal Opportunity is charged with the mission of safeguarding individuals from discrimination. So these investigators, also known as compliance officers, investigate highly complex cases of discrimination with regard to fair housing laws. And they also conduct education outreach throughout the state to ensure that Georgia is fostering more receptive environment in which to conduct business, to live, and to work. And they're dedicated to promoting fair and inclusive communities and workplaces within the state of Georgia, because we also have an equal employment division, and those compliance officers conduct investigations as well. They also conduct mediations and compliance, and just ensure the enforcement of the Georgia Fair Employment Practices Act as well as the Georgia Fair Housing Law.
Okay, and you have 6 that have to travel all over the state and cover the entire state?
Yes, sir. The 6 compliance officers will travel the state and conduct education and outreach as well as investigations. Not all investigations warrant an actual on-site visit, but for those investigations that do, we have those. Currently, we only have 4, but we're hoping with your support that we can have the 2 additional investigators to help us in our aid with ensuring that we're covering the entire state of Georgia.
All right. We got a question here. Floor leader Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With those 4 investigators, how many investigations are they conducting in a 12-month period?
With the HUD program, HUD is hoping to refer anywhere from 125 to 150 cases to the state of Georgia. And currently, we're on track to complete 60 by September 30th of this year.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm. All right, any further questions from the committee? I'm not seeing any. You must have done a great job. So thank you for being here, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you for your support, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thank you. All right, committee, we're going to have to be at ease here for just a second for David to get some IT stuff situated here for our next presentation, which will be the Department of Insurance. I see all of them on the back row back there. Chad and Martin, I don't know who y'all got. Y'all want to start easing this way and come on down. What'd y'all do wrong to? Wes is gonna stay on the back row, so he's. No, thank y'all for being here, and I think our computer shut down on us.
If it's not, it's not the end of the world.
No, we're.
Yeah. Just trying to be difficult.
We're doing pretty good. I appreciate the committee's patience of getting an action-packed meeting in this morning. Try to get this done.
It takes a second to fire up, but
You wanna?
If it's easier, Mr. Chairman, we can roll without it.
might have to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, nope, turn off. Just got a green light.
Technology's great when it works. If it doesn't, you're. Yep.
Yeah. No, we can.
Yep.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and the committee. My name is Martin Sullivan, and I am the Chief Deputy Commissioner and Chief of Staff to Commissioner John King, who wishes he could be with you all today, but he is actually traveling the state swearing in state fire marshals, so that has been on the books for a while and a very important duty. But thank you for the opportunity to present our agency's fiscal year 23 budget request. We've made some significant progress in the past few years. and we look forward to continuing to being good stewards of the tax dollars you entrust to us. You've granted us a number of one-time budget requests, and we've been able to get some great work done with those dollars. And we've also generated some retained revenue for the agency in order to make much-needed improvements. I would like to begin by highlighting what we've accomplished over the last 2 fiscal years with these funds. In 2020, you provided us with one-time funds of $125,000 to implement the Surplus Lines Automated Systems, or SLAS, an online system that makes it easier for insurance to report policies to our office for premium tax collections. Yeah, is it here? No. Luckily, he can do numbers.
We
better
won't
than-
tell the commissioner the great job y'all did in the presentation.
You know, fortunately, he's much better with numbers than clickers. We were able to implement this system in January of 2021, and after an adjustment period for the company's filing, these policies, it will be fully in effect for FY23. Our initial projected revenues when we were last here is that this system would bring in between $500,000 and then $5 million. And I'm excited to announce today that FY22 collections are already up $13 million thanks to this system. So that's $13 million in new revenue that's going directly from the state treasury from a $125,000 investment. And we've recently added an automated penalty and reconciliation module to the system in order to streamline the audit process. We've also added new funds you've provided to strengthen our agency's IT infrastructure and improve cybersecurity. We are the state's second largest revenue generating agency, bringing in $1.3 billion annually. Yet, when Commissioner King first took office, we were collecting these dollars either through paper checks or on homegrown systems and a website built in the early 2000s. With both these funds you provided and our retained revenues, we've updated these systems and moved our agency into the 21st century. We've launched our new Georgia Insurance Management System, or GIMS, which let us move from processing paper checks to accepting online payments for everything from agents licensing to staff adjustments and name approvals. We are currently developing 2 new portals for our system, one for companies and one for consumer complaints. The company portal is scheduled to go live by July 1st, while the consumer portal will be up and running by the end of the year. We have also implemented Citizenserv, a web-based cloud system that allows our Safety Fire Division to electronically accept building plans and permits and licenses. Effective July 1st of last year, Citizenserv will also allow us to digitally track inspections for building elevators, escalators, and boilers. This new system has helped us discover and address previously unknown holes in our inspection process to better serve the citizens of Georgia. We've also rolled out a new online system to help us better collect and organize legal documents and more effectively process open records requests from media and citizens. This system also allows us to implement our new surprise billing authorities from the recently enacted state and federal laws, which were not funded. In recent years, our office was also given new responsibilities to regulate pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, but we are not given any additional funds for this work. Instead, we've been able to fund this through work internally with our retained revenues. Additionally, while it's not in this budget request before you today, we might be taking on new responsibilities in the Speaker Ralston's Mental Health Parity Act that the Commissioner supports that will require at least 1 new position as well as updates to our complaint portal. On the operations side, we are in the process of replacing a 15-year-old unsupported homegrown application that currently houses over 20 agencies, businesses, processes, and 3 million documents critical to our agency operations. This one-time cost will allow us to transfer these processes to an industry-supported, sustainable, commercial application, SharePoint, that will provide additional securities, ease of use, and enhanced business functionality for the agency. On the safety fire side, we've moved to a new system for Georgia schools to report their required fire, tornado, and other safety drills to our office. This system is also free to each school system in the state. This new system also allows us to better track certificates for the fire training safety we provide to our caregiver professionals in Georgia, along with our annual work deputizing local marshals that the Commissioner is doing today. We've tripled our number of K-9 units and purchased new drones to better assist our arson investigators. These improvements have helped improve the accuracy of our investigation and reduce the time between calls. Before these improvements, it could sometimes take our office up to 4 hours to respond to a call from a local official to assist with an arson investigation. We can now be anywhere in the state in 90 minutes or less. We've also purchased 11 new trucks for our arson investigators. Previously, they would transfer equipment back and forth from the scene in a fire in a compact car. This could include carcinogenic materials that put the health of our investigators at risk. We've digitized our planned submitted process for plan review, which has resulted in reducing a former year-long backlog. We purchased new seismographs to replace outdated 15-year-old models, and we've also purchased uniforms for our field personnel, which had never had before and clearly identifies them as our team members. Previously, employees were wearing their own clothes while doing work for our agencies in hospitals, daycares, and schools, and often had trouble gaining access to certain areas as a result. Thanks to support from this committee last year, we added two new safety fire educators, allowing us to more easily cover the state to assist local fire departments in coordinating with local school systems. As part of our education program, we purchased 2 new smokehouses that can be brought in schools to demonstrate to children how quickly smoke can fill out a house and how to get to safety. Before moving to FY23, we wanted to highlight 2 important divisions of our agencies that are directly working for consumers every day. Our Consumer Service and Special Fraud. Thanks to the General Assembly, we've been able to add additional staff and resources to both these divisions. Our Consumer Service team works every day answering insurance questions and helping resolve disputes between insurance agents, companies, and policyholders. Thanks to their work in 2021 alone, our agency recovered over $17.7 million from insurance companies back into the pockets of hardworking Georgians. Our Special Fraud Division is made up of certified and sworn law enforcement officers who investigate illegal insurance activities perpetuated by companies, agents, and individuals. In 2021, Special Fraud received a 156% increase in assigned cases and saw a 269% increase in arrests for charges ranging from insurance fraud to forgery to criminal damage of property and exploitation of the elderly. Special Fraud recovered $2.6 million for victims in 2021. We see the agency's first and foremost role is to protect Georgia consumers, and your support has allowed us to accomplish this goal. We now turn to the FY23 changes, which you can find at the beginning of page 11 of your tracking sheet. Lines 29.1 through 29.1.3 reflect just over $300,000 for pay raises and retirement and earned leave changes to our administrative program. On line 29.1.4 and 29.1.5 reflect over $5,000 for DOS and Teamworks billing changes. Lines 29.2.1 through 29.2.3 reflect just over $127,000 for pay raises and retirement and earned leave changes in our enforcement program. And line 29.2.4 and 29.2.5 reflect over $1,700 for DOS and Teamworks billing changes. Moving on to fire safety, line 29.3.1 through 29.3.3 reflect just over $1.1 million for pay raises and retirement and earned leave changes. Line 29.3.4 and 29.3.5 reflect just over $3,000 for DOS and Teamworks billing changes. Line 29.3.6 reflects $800,000 transfer from insurance regulation to safety fire for 10 new positions and operating costs as we continue to grow our safety inspections program. These positions include 3 building inspectors, 1 fire investigator, 4 elevator inspectors, 1 manufactured housing inspector, and 1 hazardous material inspector. Moving to insurance regulations, lines 29.4.1 through 29.4.3 reflect over just $755,000 for pay raises and benefit changes for employees in these 2 programs. Line 29.4.4 and 29.4.5 reflect over just $13,000 for DOS and Teamworks billing changes. At the bottom of page 11, line 29.4.6 reflects the $800,000 transfer to safety fire from insurance regulation for these 10 positions that I previously discussed. At the top of page 12, you will see a new program established by the Patients First Act, passed by the legislature in 2019. Line 29.5.1 reflects just over $124 million in funds for our state's new reinsurance program that will go to offset high-cost medical claims on the Georgia individual market. Offsetting these high claims will in turn bring down healthcare premiums across Georgia. We are estimating premium reductions from anywhere between 10 and 30% across Georgia, depending on the region. Our more rural areas, where premiums are the highest, will see the greatest reduction. On line 29.5.2, you will see just over $15 million in funds to establish the new state-based run Georgia Access website to replace the federal ACA exchange. These funds will stand up the program and begin to cover enabling technology and staff. Under Georgia Access, our office will be responsible for overseeing the individual market, certifying the offered health plans, and regulating how consumers shop and enroll in health plans on the market. Moving on to our final division, special fraud, line 29.6.1 through 29.6.3, reflects just over $277,000 for pay raises and retirement and earned lane changes in our special fraud program. Lines 29.6.5 and 29.6.6 reflect over $400,000 for DOS and Teamworks billing changes. And finally, 29.6.7 shows an increase in just over $800,000 for 5 new positions and operating costs, which will complete our 2-year plan to fully staff these positions. These positions include 1 compliance officer, 3 fraud investigators, and 1 financial forensic audit. Special fraud funds are paid directly by the insurance industry and do not come from the state budget. The industry fully supports these funding. In fact, they send us the majority of the tips we investigate and appreciate the work of our agency to tackle the fraud that impacts all Georgians. Funding these final positions will allow us to review all cases referred to our office and ensure each agent has a proper caseload. Fraud impacts every Georgian every year, regardless of whether you're a direct victim or not, in the forms of higher premiums between $400 to $700 every year. Thank you for the opportunity to present our agency's priorities to show the work we've been doing on behalf of Georgia consumers. The support of this committee and the entire General Assembly is essential for us to accomplish our mission, and we are grateful for that partnership. We're happy to take any questions you have, and our Chief Financial Officer, Chad DeVella, is here with any specific financial questions you have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Martin. We do have a few questions here. Madam Chair?
Thank you for that presentation, and I'm glad we got the slides going because I wouldn't have kept up any other way. It's a lot of work you've done, and it shows. So as your legislators here, we are your second or first line of contact for consumers.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we might need some more tools or help in how we can successfully reach someone that we need to reach, just to relay the calls we've gotten. So
Sure.
I think your legislators would just appreciate a notice or a contact instructions on what to do, because we and it's part of our role. And so I call us the extension cord. We hear from a consumer, we connect you to the correct agency, and it's been very, very difficult in the past. And there's just a reluctance, maybe in a way, for us to try that approach. So some guidance and help would be greatly appreciated.
No, that's great. I actually think that's a great analogy. And Weston Burleson, who's head of our legislative affairs, and we have a whole consumer service team, we'll make sure we follow up with you. And
not just me. I think,
right, yeah,
I think
everyone.
a
But that
thing
way,
we can put on the desk for everybody.
sure. No,
or
we'd
something.
be happy to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Whip Hatchett.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Great presentation. Very detailed. But I got a call last week from a constituent, and this is kind of an open-ended question. I don't know if you can really answer it, but it's something maybe y'all can get back with me on. But he was, of course, fussing about his auto insurance rate. And he said he had called y'all's department. He had talked to several people. But his analysis showed, or what he said, is that we're the highest state in the country on our insurance premiums. What can we do about that? And you can sort of, it's an open-ended question.
It is something where we're looking at very hard. There are a lot of factors in place. A lot of it is, It depends on where you live in the state, your rate, whether you're in an urban area or you're in a more rural area. It also, their driving record plays a huge role in it. We are looking at several options, and hopefully soon we'll have some concrete ideas that we can bring to the legislature, because it is something that everywhere the commissioner goes, he hears about, and it's something we've got to tackle.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
All right, floor leader Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Martin, thanks for being here in your presentation. And just for, we've had conversations over the past couple of months on the ISO ratings for rural communities and what rural communities are continuing to do to try to keep their ISO ratings down, and yet they're not coming down. Do you mind sharing with the committee what you are doing from that perspective to help address that issue in rural Georgia?
Sure, and Representative Meeks has been very helpful. When we're traveling the state and we're meeting with fire chiefs, we're hearing that the ISO is not being fair to the more rural offices. So we're very excited. We just passed rules, and we're standing up a board that these rural communities, or any fire department really, will be able to come and appeal their ISO rating before the commissioner and members of the fire staff, as well as different members of the insurance committee, to make sure people get a fair shake. Because unfortunately, we're hearing ISO rates are being jacked up just because they're more of a rural area and they don't have enough calls. So we want to make sure everyone in Georgia is treated fairly, and it's one of the greatest responsibilities this commissioner feels is to be the voice for these fire chiefs around the state.
Yeah. I got a couple, Martin, on the 10 positions I think you mentioned in safety fire.
Yes.
Or fire safety. What kind of shape does that put y'all in there? Are you good with that?
With that transfer, yes. With the way the budget is currently, if money was moved out, some of the retained revenue moved out, we might not need to have further discussions. But as the budget is currently written, through OPB's recommendation, that we could easily absorb that transfer to give us those desperately needed help for new elevator inspectors.
Okay. And I guess along those same lines, with the other retained revenue, we've heard about complaints with building inspections and projects being delayed because of lack of inspections. I'm assuming we're getting a lot of that worked through.
Yes, and by moving to accepting those plans electronically, we've been able to turn them around quicker. And again, with that $800,000, we'd hire some new plan inspectors as well. We've also outsourced some of that out, which has been very successful because they've been able to turn them around quickly. And I believe we've actually eliminated the entire backlog when it comes to plan review, if I'm not mistaken. And if somebody is truly in a rush, they can expedite it.
Okay. And then the final, on the mental health piece in that ad, do we have a number on that?
It is
what that
120. The way the bill is currently written, we would need one position at right around 120,000 to do and that includes fringes and benefits, to do all the data collection and analysis.
Okay.
And then the update to our and the update to the portal.
Okay. All right. Any further questions from the committee?
And can I clarify one thing?
Yep.
While the 800,000 is a big help for safety fire, we will still be short in that area, because that would still only lead us with 16 inspectors for all 34,000 elevators in the state.
Okay. All right, and that's even with changing the way y'all inspect those to every other year?
So
or
yeah,
whatever
previously we would have had to do 68,000 inspections every year instead of just 34,000.
Gotcha.
Because it would have been every elevator twice a year.
Okay. All right. Good deal. I don't see any more questions. Thank you all for being here and appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Next up, we've got Department of Banking and Finance. Commissioner Hagler, come on down. Good to see you. Been a while since you've been by to see us, so we thought we'd bring you in. So thank you. Thank you for being here. For the committee, Banking and Finance is on page 6, section 14.
Thank you, Chairman,
Yep.
and members of the committee. Kevin Hagler, Commissioner of Banking Department. Real privileged to be here today. Yes, we're section 14 in your documents. I think the the package of increases has been pretty well discussed up to this point, so I'll not give you my version of that. I just wanted to say that, like many agencies, turnover has been pretty critical in recent years. Even though our department in total is only 14.9%, which is still a lot more than the 10% that we try to shoot for, it's the entry-level positions that is the most alarming. In the last fiscal year, turnover at our entry-level examiner positions was 30%, and in the current fiscal year, it's already shot up to about 66%. To put it another way, in the last 3 years, we hired 10 new examiners. We only have 3 of them currently on payroll, so we've got a terrible churn there. It's given us a great deal of anxiety in terms of succession planning and continuity because as you can tell by looking at me, our senior management team has got 25 plus years going. So a lot of us will be eligible for retirement in the next 5 years. If we can't get some incoming examiners through the training, which takes 3 to 5 years to really get their feet under them, we're going to have a major issue in the foreseeable future. So I do believe that the $5,000 increase will go a long way there. We've done salary studies and looked at our counterparts in the Southeast. If we add the $5,000, that puts us only $1,000 below what Mississippi pays their starting examiners. So it does not close the gap, and as you get further up the examiner ranks, it gets closer to about $20,000 gaps. But it would be a considerable step in the right direction, and we certainly appreciate your consideration and the support that we've had in that in previous years. The unique item to our department is item 14.1.6. This is for a cybersecurity analyst. With the words banking and finance in our name, we're a pretty good target for cyber attacks. Of course, it's a big deal for us working with the industries we regulate as well. We have a very good chief security officer, but it's a one-person show. We need an assistant for her that can help with the looking at the security logs, managing the patch management, and every time a known vulnerability is announced, it takes a while to look through all the software that we use and our vendors use to make sure it's the right version, and we've got some support there. We have a small IT team, but we're cannibalizing those folks in the security area, and we need those folks doing their job because in the remote environment, we're doing a lot of examination work, not even on site anymore, but dialing into their system. So we need to be able to scrub certain laptops, make them clean so we can dial into bank systems and things without running the risk of contaminating either direction. So that is where that position comes from. It's listed at $117,000, which would be roughly $73,000 in salary plus the benefits and things that go on with that. So I will pause or end there, but happy to entertain any questions regarding the department and our budget.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, Chairman Parsons. Question?
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate you pointing it out on 14.16 there. My only question about it is, I guess, with the market the way it is and with the scarcity of people in cybersecurity, I mean, does $76,000 even get you what you need for that?
We're not sure. Obviously we haven't done that yet. We are looking for an entry-level position, somebody that can be a little more hands-on and can be trained by our chief security officer. So we're hopeful that will be enough. This is coming from a recommendation from OPB and GTA, so we're kind of relying on their expertise. But obviously for us, the more the merrier. If you'd like to throw in a little bit more, we would gladly accept it. But we're hopeful it'll get somebody in the door that we can train and develop for.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just happen to know in that particular field, there's a real shortage of people that are trained for it or even certified in any way.
Yes, sir.
And that they, they demand a pretty good price. So I mean,
Yes, sir.
It's great that you're doing it. I think I just wondered when I saw First, I saw the 117, but that's benefits, I guess.
Yes, sir. It's a great question. It's one we asked ourselves as well. So I may be in front of you again next time saying you were correct. It didn't work out, and we need some more for that spot. But
thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I had one quick one, and I refreshed my memory. We moved the installment loan folks over to your agency, right?
Yes, sir. They started with us July of 2020.
Okay. And all that's going well, working with them and everybody
Absolutely. The insurance commissioner's office were great partners during that transition. The staff that we brought over have been great team players. It's been quite a bit of work, though, there were some modification to the law, and we've engaged closely with the industry to making tweaks. We've had housekeeping bills previous years as well as this year that continue to make tweaks we just operate under a different system than the insurance commissioner did, and so when we moved them over, a few gaps and things that we're working on, but it's been a great relationship with the industry. We spent a lot of time working with them, and of course we've come to find out that there's different business models within that industry, and they've been very patient and great partners as we've worked through it. So still a lot of work to do, but we've started that examination process, and now we're learning things through that process, and we'll continue to refine and make it better.
Okay, good deal. We'll appreciate you working with them and doing all that. I don't think we've seen you in a while, so I just wanted to get an update on that. But thank you for that. Any further questions? Chair Lady Smith.
So my question goes partly to find out from you, do you also audit like title ponds and finance? How does that work, or is that under you?
Great question. Title pond is not regulated at the state level. It's my understanding that it is regulated in some places at the local level. I believe that there may be a bill being talked about that may be introduced that would elevate it to the state level, and our department would take on responsibility for that, but it is not currently one of our responsibilities.
Further question, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
So can you tell us the institutions that you do audit, other than what we understand is banking? I think you audit some others as well?
Absolutely. So state chartered banks,
Yes.
Synovus and Ameris being some of the most popular names that you see out there. Credit unions, Delta Community, Georgia's Own, Associated. Very proud of that portfolio as well. We regulate the mortgage industry, so Rocket Mortgage being one of the most notable out there that you see advertisements for. But we also cover the money service businesses, which is your check cashers, your money transmitters, and your sellers of payment instruments. That gets to be interesting because that's where a lot of our fintech pieces come in. So Circle and Square and all the geometric shapes that we regulate there. It's fascinating. A lot of times, if what their business is, it's not the technology so much as what they actually do. And if money transmission is a piece of what they do, then they typically will wind up with a state license in that regard. And of course, the Georgia Installment Lenders Group, which like First Franklin, First Financial, some of those names out there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One more question. So in the past, I don't want to tell you how long I've been on this committee, but a lot of times our committee is not aware that you incur more and more expenses for your examiners to go out and do this. And this is a part of our citizenry that at times needs actually more eyes on it than less. So for the benefit of the committee, it would help us to know if we are in fact giving you the tools that you need to ensure the protection of our consumers out there. So that's my opinion. So, is it not true?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for that. This committee has been generous with us in the past, and we greatly appreciate that. We made our presentation to the Office of Planning and Budget in July, and as I alluded to, when you look at bank examiner and credit union examiner salaries, there's a large disparity between what we even pay compared to our fellow southern states. Never mind the fact that the Federal Reserve and the FDIC are located nearby, and that pay scale is tremendously higher, particularly as you get beyond the entry-level position. When we made our presentation for our non-depository side, which is where our Georgia Industrial Loan Act and money service businesses and mortgages, while the pay disparity is there, it's really the manpower or woman power disparity that we're encountering the most. And the licensing, again, is a function of Georgia being a great place to live and work. and some changes in federal law, the number of applications that we're receiving for folks that want to have a mortgage license has gone through the roof. In the last 5 years, that has been a 124% increase, and that was a big increase 5 years ago, even leading up to that. So unfortunately, we're running fairly well behind trying to get those licenses processed and making sure that we keep you know, folks that have been run out of other states, keep them out of Georgia. But then again, we're starting to cannibalize our examination workforce, trying to keep up with the licensing side. So we're not able to get out and be as visible as I would like, or as we need to be, quite honestly. So, that didn't make it into the proposal, and I understand that my budget is what the governor's budget is. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to you and our committee. This problem has waxed and waned through the years, and when it becomes a really bad problem, we are just paying catch up. And our examiners, is it not true, make about 1/3 of what the people make that they're examining. So we have we just have an imbalance at times, and I just hope that we can be on top of that and make sure we don't get upside down again in helping our most needy people in the state. Thank you.
Thank you for those very kind words.
All right. Commissioner, I don't see any further questions. Good to see you again. Good to have you here, and thank you for what you do over there. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all for the kind consideration. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Next up, we've got Office of Administrative Hearings, Chief Judge Michael Malahi. Yes, so sorry about that. Good to have you here. We don't get to see you very often, so thank you for being here.
I'm very happy to be here. Good morning to you, Mr. Chairman, and distinguished members of the committee. We only have 5 items on the proposed budget for FY 2023. Starting at the bottom of page 4 with line 12.9.1, which increases funds to provide a $5,000 cost of living adjustment for eligible employees. Line 12.9.2 increases funds in the amount of $20,244 to allow eligible employees to withdraw up to 40 hours of leave from their leave balance. And line 12.9.3 reflects a change to the employee's retirement system contribution rate, and line 12.9.4 reflects a premium adjustment from DOAS. The only very noteworthy item on our budget is on line 12.9.5, which allows for transfer of funds from OSA to the tax tribunal in the amount of $503,733. I believe you have, Mr. Chairman, already heard from Judge O'Neill on this item. The tax tribunal is an independent agency established by the General Assembly in 2012, and this transfer allows the tax tribunal more control and management over the budget. And that's basically all we have. I will be glad to answer any questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Judge. Yes, we had Judge O'Neill last week, and he praised the cooperation that he has with your agency and what y'all do to work together. And I guess my question is, do you foresee any logistical challenges with them being separated out like this, or are y'all still going to be able to work together?
No, we don't anticipate any other changes. It's basically transfers the money to his budget, so he has control over it. If he needs to come before you to ask for more money, he can always do that.
Okay. All right, good deal. All right, do we have any questions from the committee? All right, Judge, thank you for being here. Appreciate what you do. All right, next up, we've got Office of Inspector General, Scott McAfee. Come on down. Welcome. Don't get to see y'all very often either, so welcome, and good to have you here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're on, for the committee, we're on page 9, section 27.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for having us and for allowing us the opportunity to present today. And thank you as well to the other representatives here today. As you may be aware, the Office of the Inspector General is tasked with being the independent watchdog agency over Georgia's entire executive branch. We oversee, as our mandate, fraud, waste, corruption, abuse, any violations of the Code of Ethics, as well as since 2019, any allegations of sexual harassment that prevent conflict issues within the agencies. And simply put, we're here to make sure that the public can have trust and confidence in our government. As you alluded to on the tracking sheet that you have before you for the FY23, the current requests simply reflect that the changes that the governor has put in his budget for the $5,000 raises, the associated costs and incidentals that come with that. And we are very much appreciative of that request because, as you've heard again and again, the common theme we have in our government and in our agency is that we have historically struggled with retention, and we think that those raises and those increases will go a long way in addressing those. But we also have, for the committee's consideration, which we've just passed out, is something that we anticipate asking for and requesting for the next fiscal year for legislation that's currently pending before the General Assembly. We anticipate and hope that it'll be passing out of the Judiciary Committee, which is House Bill 960. And it would be effective, upon signing. And essentially what this legislation does is it's going to put our agency on the verge of a great transition. Historically, we've existed through an executive order, but finally, after 19 years, we're seeking full law enforcement agency status. And with that transition come costs. Thankfully, though, because we are a much smaller agency, ours are going to have much fewer zeros than I think you're used to hearing. And so the total cost that we've presented to you today and we would request is approximately $270,000, and that's outlined, itemized in the spreadsheet we've provided. And if I could summarize those briefly, I'll point out that the majority of those costs are going to be this transition for our investigators to go to full law enforcement status. And that includes equipment, post-certification training, the costs that come with the ability for us to serve and execute our own search warrants and subpoenas. But we also request in here, two of the other larger items in this request would be for a new criminal analyst position. As you could anticipate, many of our investigations are document intensive. We're dealing with white collar fraud, and we have to examine a great deal of banking records, financial statements, as well as other electronic evidence. And so we're asking for some more support on that front as we make that transition. In addition, you'll see that we request other salary increases, and I'll point out as a point of interesting timing, just published in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution this morning, was a profile featuring how local law enforcement agencies are struggling to recruit new officers and to retain them. We see they highlighted the Dunwoody and Brookhaven police departments. Some of these agencies are offering as much as a $10,000 signing bonus. And so we would ask for these additional salary increases so that we can make sure that we are hiring and retaining the very best investigators for our office and they are able to fulfill our mission. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about our agency or about this additional FY23 request for this legislation.
All right. Chairman Parsons.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. You answered one question. I was trying to remember how long this particular agency has been in existence. I think you said 19 years.
That's correct, sir. It was initially signed by Governor Sonny Perdue in 2003.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And so I believe it's grown a lot since he initially started that. How many employees are there now?
So as I understand, it started out with a grand total of, I think, 3 employees. And since then, especially with assuming the mandate on sexual harassment, we've grown now to include a total of 11.
Okay. So now are these
11? Yes, ma'am.
The law enforcement, are those people that you already have that are going to be becoming state police? Is that
That is
correct?
the plan. Yes.
So who, if I may, I'm sorry, if I may, so who is doing that now? Now they're not post certified. They're not certified as state police. Who does that now? Do you hand it off to the GBI or state? Who does what they're going to be currently?
We're very reliant on our relationship and our partnership with the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
So currently, when we need a subpoena, when we need a search warrant, we take that over to the Attorney General's office, we walk it down to the courthouse, and we get it signed. And so, and we can, as we presented at the committee hearing, there are a number of reasons why allowing us to have this designation is going to increase our efficiency, the safety of our officers, and why it's necessary. But currently, yes, we do rely heavily on the Attorney General's office, as well as other law enforcement agencies that we team up with, including the U.S. Attorney's Office, local police departments, and the GBI.
Okay, if I may, another. So, based on what you said, if I believe this is correct, currently it's still, the agency is still existing under executive order, is that correct?
That's correct.
And there is legislation this year that would make it created as a state agency?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. I've always been interested in, not interested so much, but intrigued on how many agencies, which I had no idea before I ever came here, how many agencies do have certified, post-certified officers within their agencies. So I just find it interesting, going back to when it was initially the initial concept of it. But anyway, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Chair?
Thank you. I believe Representative Parsons and I are both telling you how long we've been on this committee. So he pretty much asked my questions, but thank you for what you're doing and keep us posted.
Thank you for your consideration.
All right. Just out of curiosity, I had a question here on this request. I've got some teenagers in my house that are going to be drivers soon, and I see that we've got $700 for tinted windows. Is that what it costs to tint windows these days?
Apparently, sir.
Must be really dark and on a Suburban or something. So, all right. I don't see any further questions. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do, and appreciate you bringing this forward, and we'll get to work on it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next up, we've got Georgia Board of Accountancy, Director Paul Ziga. Thank you for being here. We don't know that I've had you here since I was chairman, so welcome. I don't know if that's good or bad. That means you're doing a really good job and you've got everything you need, or what? But
we do a really good job, but we do not have everything we need, sir.
Okay, well, that's why you're here, I guess.
So to the Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Paul Ziga. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia State Board of Accountancy. The Board of Accountancy regulates the CPA profession in the state of Georgia and is charged with protecting the public interest in that regard. We have we're probably the smallest agency in the state of Georgia with 4 employees, including myself. So as you can see and we are an attached agency of the State Accounting Office, and we are number 11, item 11.6, which I believe is page 3 of the tracking document. And myself and the board are appreciative of the governor's recommendations for the salary increase and associated costs for fiscal year 23. What was shocking to our board was the fact that we had requested our original budget from 2 years ago to be reestablished, which is the handout that was presented to the members here. Of $115,000, which was cut from our budget for whatever apparent reason, because of the budget cuts that the current administration did 2 years ago. And that money has not been reestablished to our board. That causes our board to not be able to do the work that we need to do to have enforcement activities. Just in comparison, we have 4 employees. The state of Alabama we have just under 23,000 active licensees in Georgia and just under 2,100 active firm licenses. With 4 staff people, the state of Alabama has roughly half the number of licensees, and they have 8 staff people. The state of North Carolina is the closest to Georgia in the number of active licensees. They have 14 staff people. So we're trying to do the work of a board of accountancy with 4 staff people. And so because our budget was cut, the main item that was cut out of our budget previously was we were using a third party to do continuing education audits of our licensees, which was $75,000. So that was cut from our budget, plus an additional $40,000 of just regular operating costs. And we are currently, for fiscal year 22, estimated to go $30,000 over our budget. And I don't see a way around not going over budget. So I believe it is impacting the state of Georgia to be able, and our agency to be able to protect the public interest by not having this money in the budget.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And I've got some notes here that the license, CPA licenses are renewed every 2 years.
Every 2 years, yes, sir.
And those fees generate about 2.6 million is the number I have in revenue for the state that goes to the general fund. Correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And at $700,000 a year, we're only spending 1.4 million every 2 years. So we're generating
correct
1.2 million in excess of what we spend. And according to the Attorney General's office, the license fee that we charged to licensees is supposed to equal what it costs to run our board. And that's not happening.
Yep.
And OPB has refused. I've been talking to OPB for 2 years, and they've refused to change our budget. And I don't understand that.
Okay. And so your request is for $115,000 for an additional staff that I'm assuming will generate even more revenue.
Even more revenue, because we're not able to enforce and go after cases and generate fines, which would generate that revenue, which would more than offset what that person would cost.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's an old number too. So, I mean, with all these retention efforts, I really don't know what it would cost to actually hire that individual now.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good deal. Well, I can do that napkin math as we talked about earlier. So it sounds good to me.
And I appreciate, I do apologize. I am somewhat passionate about this, and my board is somewhat passionate about this. And we frankly don't understand why nothing has happened, because our board is trying to right size to where we should be in comparison with other states. And we just don't understand why that hasn't been taken into consideration.
Gotcha. Well, I like agencies that make money, so that's good. Good deal. Well, I don't see any further questions. I guess let's we'll have some more questions and follow up, but we'll see what we can do. And thank you for what you do, and appreciate you being here. And we'll be in touch.
I sincerely appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, committee members. Last one, Department of Revenue, the one that makes all the money for everybody, or brings it in. So David's gonna need a minute here to. All right, Commissioner. Good to see you again.
My pleasure, always.
Committee members are page 19, section 42.
I kind of figure you've heard some of what I was going to say, so I'll jump around a little bit. We don't have to do a whole presentation.
All right. Well, thank you. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Watson and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on the Governor's budget recommendations for the Department of Revenue for fiscal year 2023. My name is Robin Crittenden, and I'm Commissioner of the Department of Revenue. And I have here with me our CFO, Ken Nash, and our Legislative and Communications Director, Mason Rainey. I'm going to go ahead and turn to the tracking document, which is section 42, which on my copy it starts at page 19, but I think you said a different page just now.
Page 19. Yep,
Okay.
we're good.
You good? Great. Governor Kemp's budget recommendation for fiscal year 2023 would provide 16, did I lose the mic? Oh, okay. $16.6 million in additional funds to the Department of Revenue, $13.6 million for the statewide changes that have been discussed earlier, and $2.9 million for DOR specific changes. If it's okay, I know you've heard about those statewide changes from several agencies this morning, so I'll just go ahead and bypass those and just talk about our two specific changes. Okay. The first of those is $2.7 million in state general funds as fireworks trust funds, and this is reflected in line 42.4.6 in the local government services program. Per the Georgia Revenues and Reserve Report, the fireworks excise tax collections for 2021 were $2.7 million. The report will be the official report to tie to for all HB 511 funds for the appropriation bill each year. Under House Bill 511, the Department of Revenue is now the trustee of the Fireworks Trust Fund. Excuse me, as trustee of the trust fund, the budget moves the base amount for the Firefighter Standards and Training Council and the Trauma Care Network Commission to the Department of Revenue, and then adds $2.11 million more to total $2.7. DOR will now be responsible for depositing funds to and dispersing funds from the Fireworks Trust Fund according to the formula that's set forth under that same code section. Also, if you'd look at line 42.7.6, these funds, $253,000, support the DOR's fraud unit's use of the Department of Labor data for analytics to verify information, such as validating employer verification, wage verification, Georgia withholding, and unemployment wages. It's reflected, as I said, on line 42.7.6 in the Office of Special Investigations. Without access to this data, a backlog of returns would ensue and grow due to the need of fraud analysts to manually process returns for this information. This would greatly increase the amount of time it takes to release taxpayer funds. The DOL data allows us to automate this process and reduces any potential errors. Those are the two items that I wanted to bring to your attention. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Do we have any questions from the committee? Chair Lady Smith.
Thank you for your presentation, and your your supplemental was very detailed. So I guess the question goes to a theme we've heard today, difficulty in hiring the types of employees that you need. And is there a brief way to explain to us how you're doing in that category?
Certainly. We are we're running about a 10% vacancy rate right now and about a 15% turnover rate. I think we're having the most trouble with some of our customer-facing positions. That's where we're losing people. I think it was Commissioner Moore who had mentioned that just the word of the potential for the $5,000 increase this year, as well as the salary increase next year, has helped with retention. We've been doing as much as possible that we can do without money to try to retain people, some of the things that keep people engaged in working. And so we're just doing the best we can with our retention. We have a great workforce. We have close to 900 employees, and they do a fabulous job. We are in our very, very busy season right now, as you can imagine, if you haven't filed your taxes yet. And so we are working very hard. They are working very hard, and I appreciate all the work they do. This increase means a lot. This is life-changing for a lot of people, and really do appreciate your support of it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you. I had one, just Commissioner, on the flip of funds. I think last time you were here, there had been over 20 million or so allocated. Could you maybe just update us on that? Is there any movement there, or do you?
So about 20 million has gone out. We are receiving requests from local governments as it stands, and we're looking at either doing another disbursement later this month or sometime next month.
Okay.
But we did get the first half out. It was pending at that point
Okay.
before.
Good deal. All right. Any further questions? All right, Commissioner, thank you and your staff for your patience. We saved the best for last, so sorry about that, but
No problem.
appreciate
Thank
what
you.
y'all do, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Committee, we are adjourned, and thank y'all for being here. Appreciate it.